I remember looking up at her, and I said, "Jamie, if I could just get high, I'd be fine." And she said, "But is that really what you want?" And I was like, "No, I don't. But if I could, I'd be fine. I'm hurting." And she said, "Well, what do you want?" And I said, "I just want to be normal. Just want to feel normal again, and that's it." I said, "I don't want to do drugs anymore. I just want to feel normal." And she said, "Trey, sometimes if you want something really, really bad, sometimes you just got to get on your knees and you just got to cry out to God." I'm Trey Fielding, and I was addicted to meth for 9 years.
Tell me a little bit about your childhood. When was this a something that just kind of came out of nowhere, or you were brought into it?
Uh, as a child, I grew up, my parents did a really, really good job of taking us to church. I remember as a kid, a lot of times not wanting to go, but we always went to church. Um, so I grew up, knowing all the Bible stories that we learn as kids, um, and church is church has always been it's just always been something that we did as a family. I mean, I can't remember any Sunday, like, there was never a period of time where we stopped going to church. They always had us in church. Um, and they even moved us to a different church, uh, as we became teenagers because it had a really strong, youth group. And so they made sure that we were always being fed and that we were always, I guess how you say, um, always keeping the armor of God near us or on us.
So, was there a point where you walked away from church?
We went to church. I was faithful in church, all the way through high school, and then I moved to college. I went to Tarleton State, and then I remember following my parents in my vehicle as they moved me to college, and I remember this really well, listening to, the name of the radio station, I think they called it back then, was K-Love, and, and that's the music, that's what we grew up really listening to. If we listen to music, we weren't really a musical family. I don't know a lot about music, but I remember driving to Stephenville behind my parents, listening to K-Love, and, and got me moved in the dorms, got everything was set and ready to go, and as my parents were leaving, I remember my mom's one of the last things they said was, "Hey, make sure you find a church." And so, I can't remember, it was towards the weekend, so that was one of my priorities, was to find a church, so I found a Baptist church. I can't remember the name of it, and I went that first Sunday, went by myself, and I remember not there wasn't it wasn't not one person came up to me and said anything, like, it was like, "Hang on, am I even here?" It's like I wasn't even noticed. But I went to church, and it was good, the music was good. I don't remember having any, like, bad thoughts about it other than the fact that nobody approached me and nobody noticed. And so I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And then, the next Sunday came along, and I went back to the same church thinking, "Oh, somebody'll notice, but nobody did. And so I was like, I'm just this ain't where I need to be." And so it was at that point right then where I quit going to church. I did go to church with my roommate. My roommate was a devout Catholic, um, and I went with him. I had told him about it, and he was like, "Why don't you go check out my church?" Okay, so he was like, "But I go on Saturdays." I said, "Oh, okay, cool." So I go to this Catholic church with him, and it was very foreign to anything I'd ever seen at church. I didn't, Honestly, I didn't like it because I didn't understand what was going on. They had these chants they were doing and stuff like that, and I was just like, I didn't know. Everybody in the whole church knew, and I was sitting there kind of looking around and trying to be involved, and it wasn't the same. The message wasn't delivered the same way that it was delivered in the Southern Baptist churches that I grew up in. So, um, pretty quickly, I quit going to church at that point.
So you're in college at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about just who you were as a man in college.
So, I was I was very busy. I was a college athlete. And that was my main priority. Um, was to play baseball. Um, as far as the school part of it went, that was secondary. The reason I went to school was to go play baseball. And looking back, I've looked back on it so many times at this story, and what I've noticed is that as I always felt like when I went there that my parents did a really good job of making sure that I had the armor of God with me on. And then as I got there, that I slowly kind of stripped that away, stripped that off. Tell me that question again.
How would you describe yourself as a young man?
Um, as far as I would, I would say I was cocky. Um, Pretty outgoing. I made a lot of friends. They obviously consisted of guys on the baseball team. Um, but I was driven. I was driven like as far as I was my end goal was to go beyond college and play. And so as far as everything that I did, everything that I did went to it was efforts in getting from college baseball to pro baseball. Um and then that's really that's it.
Tell me, so you after college, did you go pro?
No. So it was gonna be it was gonna I think it was gonna happen. Um, when I was in high school, I I caught the attention of a few pro scouts. They came and watched me play. Um, I don't know what they thought about me. I didn't like personally go up and get to talk to them, but they did sit by my parents and talk to my parents a little bit. My dad never really told me, what they said, and I never did really ask. Um, One of the things that I used to tell myself a lot, and it was just a tool to drive myself, was that I wasn't good enough.
Mm.
But in the back of my mind, I would always feel like I was good enough. But I would use that as hey, you're not good enough. You need to go. There's another guy working. You need to go get to work. Um, and I can't remember the question again. Are you gonna edit all this out?
No, it's all right. It's just a conversation. So, um,
It's bad.
no, it's not bad. It's real. It's real. Um, well, let's jump, kind of jump forward and like tell me, kind of describe the events. How did you first encounter meth?
Um, so I got through my freshman year, did really well. Got through my sophomore year, did really well. And then got through my junior season really, really well. And every year got better and better. Um, One day at practice, my catcher and I, he and I were warming up. We stretched, we got loose, we got warmed up, and the second throw I threw to him, something popped in my shoulder, and it was immediately the worst pain that I'd ever felt on anything. And I remember when it happened. Ben looked at me and he said, "Hey, you okay?" I said, "No, man, something popped. I don't know what that was." He threw the ball back to me. I threw it again, and it just got worse. And I said, "Man, I gotta go. I gotta go to the trainer." So I go to the trainer, tell him what happened, and they kind of it really didn't. They really didn't seem like they really cared that much. Gave some exercises to do, did them. Kept trying to play and pitch and everything, and it was worse. It got worse, and it got worse, and it got worse. Went to my parents found a doctor, went and got MRIs. The first two doctors couldn't find anything wrong with, according to the MRI, with my shoulder. So they went and did some research, found a really good shoulder doctor up in Dallas, went to him, and I was sitting next to him. He looked at the MRI, and as soon as he put his eyes on it, he goes, "You got a slap lesion. I can fix that." And I remember him turning to me and looking at me and saying, "But I'm not God, so you're not going to be what you were." And I remember whenever he said that to me, I something in my mind said, "Dude, you're done. That's it. You know, this dream that you're living is over. It's over with." And so I have the surgery. I go through all of the steps to get back to play again, and it wasn't the same. It was never the same. And in all of that, I just remember hearing like something telling me like, "Dude, this is it. You're done. You give it up." And it still got really depressed. I was out with some buddies one night at a little bar in Stephenville. Some of the guys I played with, everybody's having a good time, and I remember sitting there and really not engaged with them, and all I could think about was, is there another way I could get to where I was? But I just in my mind, I knew something was telling me like, "That's it, you're done." Uh, and as we were leaving that bar that night, it was closing, and one of my buddies walked up. He said, "Hey, man, what are you about to do?" I was like, I'm about to just go home, man." And this girl walks up and she said, "Well, he's gonna go with me." And I knew her face. I didn't know her personally. I knew her face. And I was kind of looked there like, "Oh, okay." So I went to her apartment, and there was this thing sitting on her coffee table. And I was sitting there and I was looking at it, and I was staring at it, and she walked in there and she goes, "Do you know what that is?" And I was like, "No, I don't. What is that?" And she said, "Well, that's a bong." Um, and I was like, "Oh, I've heard of that." I was like, "Oh, you smoke weed, huh?" And she's like, "No, I don't." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I was kind of confused. She said, "Have you ever heard of ice?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." I was a cocky baseball player. I was kind of being a smart aleck, and I was like, "Yeah, hey, we use it to ice our arms, you know." And she goes, "No, it's meth. Have you ever heard of meth?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." She said, "Would you want to do some?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess. I don't know." And it was at that point. I remember I smoked it, and I didn't smoke. Like, I didn't smoke cigarette. I didn't really know how. I smoked it, and I remember immediately feeling all this pressure and it just felt better. It felt better than the way I felt. And and that's what started a 9-year addiction of being addicted to meth.
Mm. So after that experience, you left that night, and like, what'd you think the next day?
Actually, I was at I was at that apartment, I think it was for, like, 3 days, like, I never left for 3 days, and then and I was doing stuff so out of character, I was smoking cigarettes, and it was just constant drinking alcohol, and, and then I do remember I went back to my apartment, and all I could think about was, "Man, I'd like to feel that way again," and so, it seemed like it seemed as if it became an everyday thing, like, it was easy to get. It was everywhere. It's something I didn't know about and didn't realize that, like, all these people were doing this, and so, and people that I knew, people that are close I was close to, and so I just did meth for the next 9 years.
You said it was easy to get. Like, did, it's just that same girl that you could just go back to and get some, or
I think I did go back to her and get it a couple more times. Like, she would call me back, "Hey, do you wanna smoke?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." Um, but it was guys that I played baseball with, that I didn't even realize, didn't know, and so that's where I would go do it at.
what was the feeling you had when you would smoke it?
Um, I don't know that that's gonna be easy for me to explain, but it's it's a it's a feeling of, I don't know what word you could use. Um, you feel very aware of everything. You can stay awake for you can stay awake for so long. Like, you never lose your energy. Never. You don't get tired. You don't eat. You don't get hungry. There's no appetite. Um, but then it gets harder and harder, and you have to do more of it, but you never get back to that. You never get back to that original feeling that you felt when you first did it. Never. Not one time. I think probably at the end of me doing it, I was where I found a way to do it to match where I felt that first time, which was shooting it up.
What do you mean by shooting it up?
So you do it intravenously, you shoot it up in your arm or your feet or your hands, just find a vein and shoot it up.
So, did you have to progress to different, more extreme
Um,
measures to get that same
yeah,
feeling?
yes, yeah, yeah.
So, how did that progression go for you?
So
And you're a senior in college at
I
this
was a
point.
senior in college. At this point, like we were talking about now, I'm in my um upper 20s. I'm like 28, 29. At the end of my addiction, I was 28, 29, maybe 30 years old. Um but as far as the progression, you just you learn new different ways to do it. As far as meth goes, man, you can eat it, you can smoke it, you can snort it, you can shoot it, and you can do there's so many different ways to do it. There's so many different ways to ingest that, to get that in your bloodstream.
Were you able to function in your normal life while doing this?
Oh yeah, I actually owned a business. Um, so my dad gave me a business. I was is a general contractor, building homes, and I was able to do that. But also, what was bad about it is I had the freedom to go to a job site, take care of what needed to be taken care of, and immediately go to a drug dealer's house and get drugs. Um, and eventually, that addiction took over, and that business went away. It was basically absorbed because I had bad business habits because I had a really, really bad drug habit.
Mhm. Yeah, what were some of the ways that that addiction hurt your life?
Um, well, losing losing that business, That was hard. I lost. I I feel like I lost a lot of personality. Things I still struggle with is I don't feel emotion the way that I should.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's damaged something in my brain to where like I don't I don't get emotional at in times like with my wife or with my kids whenever I should have, really good emotions or sad emotions. A lot of times and when something happens, I'll just kind of be like, "Oh, okay." Um, one of the things that I've noticed that I really struggle with, and Carrie knows this because she actually noticed it a few years into our marriage is yeah, I haven't I've never I don't know how when the last time was that I had one of those, deep belly laughs. Like, I don't hardly ever laugh. Like, I'll think something's funny. Like, my wife she's a hilarious person. She's one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. And she does some of the funniest things and says some of the funniest things, and these one-liners that she spits out are hilarious. I recognize that they're hilarious. We may be driving in the car going to dinner or something, and she'll say something, and it's like, I'm like, and that's the extent of my emotion, that's it.
Mm.
But I'm and I'll sit there and I'll be like, "And that's some funny I'll be like, "That's some funny stuff right there." And she was like, "Yeah, I can't tell that it's funny to you," you know? Um, I think that there's some lasting effects from, from that from drugs that
What would you say? I hear the phrase rock bottom a lot for like addicts. Did you have a rock bottom?
oh, yeah. So, this is where, in my opinion, my story isn't that good, like, to the point that where you and I are at right now is I don't think it's that good of a story. It's kind of um if I look back on it, I went through a period of time in my life where I was just basically throwing a little hissy fit. I was mad. I was mad. I was mad at God. Um, and I remember, like, I remember having thoughts like, "Hey, like if I'm not gonna get to have what I've worked for, then I don't need a relationship with you, God." I remember distinctly remember having those thoughts, and basically just saying, "I'm gonna do everything I can to destroy myself." Because if I can't do what I wanted to do, then I don't honestly, I don't but I'm just gonna destroy myself. Um, but rock bottom for me was actually probably one of the most significant it's probably one of the most significant things that's ever happened to me in my entire life. Um, we were I was living in China Spring, and, I was really good at hiding what was going on. I was really good at people didn't see me in passing and say, "Guy's on drugs." You couldn't really tell. I was really good at hiding it and really good at acting as normal as I possibly could. Um, but I remember I was at my house, and I think I'd been up for I don't know, I couldn't tell you an approximate number of days, but I would say it was anywhere from 3 to 5 days of no sleep. And whenever that happens, eventually whenever you do, you either run out of dope or you just go to sleep. Uh, I remember being woke up by my mom, and I remember her saying, "Hey, will you come outside?" This was rock bottom. Uh, and I was also I was at a point to where I think I was at a point to where I was tired, and I wanted something to happen. I remember my mom woke me up. She said, "Can you come outside?" I walk outside, and something that you got to know though is that my dad is my best friend. He's been my best friend I mean, since as far back as I can remember. So I go outside and my dad's standing there and he turns around and he walks up to me and he sticks out a spoon and he says, "Trey, what is this?" And I remember looking at it and I remember my mouth watering and I looked at him and then I looked in his eyes and said, "Dad, that's drugs." And I remember I never had seen, even to this day, I never had seen his eyes look the way they looked. And I think what happened is in that moment, I broke his heart because he turned around and he walked off. He went and got in his truck and he left. And I remember thinking that I had damaged my relationship with my dad. And so I just sat there and watched him drive away. And I turned and my mom was standing here and she says, "Hey, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna send you to a rehabilitation center and we're gonna get you. You're gonna be fine." And I remember looking at her and I remember thinking about my dad, but I looked at her and I said, "Mom, please don't send me to a rehabilitation center. I have friends that have been to those, and all it did for them is it made their network of people to get drugs from even bigger. I don't think it's not gonna help me." And I think I told her something really goofy like, "I'll hitchhike back to Waco. I'll be back in Waco. Give me 3 days. I'll be back in Waco. Don't waste your money on that." And she says, "So what? So what should we do?" And I looked at her and I said, "I think what you guys should do is just don't leave me. Don't don't leave me." And she didn't understand what I meant. Well, what I was trying to tell her is just stay by my side. And I think we can make it. I think I can make it through it. And so um eventually that evening my mom left. She prayed for me. Um she left and went home and she sent me a text message. I think it was a text message. She may have called me and she said, "Hey, we're praying for you." And I've got a whole bunch of people praying for you. And I remember I got really embarrassed and I asked her, I was like, "Well, do they know what they're praying about?" And that was a selfish. I remember thinking back to this. This was very selfish of me to. I wanted people to be praying for me, but I didn't want people to know what they were praying about. And uh, anyway, a couple of days went by, and I remember those days as far as this was where I would say rock bottom would be at for me. I remember, I think that might have happened on a Thursday or a Friday. And a couple of days went by, and I didn't go feed that addiction. Whenever I would be like, "All right, I need to go get some dope." And a couple of days went by. So I think we were on like a Monday, and I was sitting in the living room of the house I lived in, leaned up against the couch with my back. No, I wasn't sitting on the couch, but leaning up against like the foot of the couch. And and it was carpet, and I remember thinking that I don't know how to explain the feeling that I had, but I was hurting. I remember my heart was hurting like, it was I was hurting. I had cried a lot. I remember thinking at one point that I didn't think I could cry another tear. I had been crying so much for the last few days. And, but then I would have thoughts of, "Man, if I just get up and go get high, I'll be fine. Like, I'll feel fine. It'll fix this. This'll go away. I'll be fine, and I can try to hide it, I guess. Start lying about it." And so, I remember sitting there, I think this was a Monday, and I heard the door open to the house, the one that comes through the garage, and I heard it open, and I thought to myself, like, "Wow, why is she coming over here?" Thinking, like my mom, like, she's getting on my nerves. She'd been texting and calling, checking on me, and, my sister walks in, uh, and they call me Bobo. You can call me Bobo from now on if you want. They call me Bobo, and she says, "Bobo, uh, are you alright?" I remember looking up at her, and I said, "Jamie, if I could just get high, I'd be fine." And she said, "But is that really what you want?" And I was like, "No, I don't. But if I could, I'd be fine. I'm hurting." And she said, "Well, what do you want?" And I said, "I just want to be normal. Just want to feel normal again, and that's it." I said, "I don't want to do drugs anymore. I just want to feel normal." And she said, "Trey, sometimes if you want something really, really bad, sometimes you just got to get on your knees and you just got to cry out to God." And she said that, and I immediately got really emotional, started crying, probably like this. I remember pulling my knees up close to my chest and wrapping my arm around my knees. And I looked up and she was gone. And so I got down, got on my knees, and I remember just telling God, "I'm sorry." And I said, "God, I'm sorry." I don't know how many times I said it, but it seemed like it was a really, really long time. And I remembered the tears flowing out of my face. And it felt like it was a, not drops, it just felt like it was just streams of water coming out of me. And it kind of, it was weird. I didn't, I never cried like that before, and that's the only time it ever happened. Uh, and I just remember kept saying, "God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry." And, I don't know how much longer. I don't know how much time went by. Uh, but I told God I was sorry. And then I said a prayer, pretty much was like, "God, the only way that I can beat this is if you never let me come in contact with anybody that I ever did drugs with, anybody that I was around. I can't see them. I can't, you're going to have to keep them away from me." And, never put me in contact with another drug ever again. I remember having a prayer, something like that. And, and then I just went back to saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And I remember hearing my back door open again. And I thought to myself, like, "Gosh, Jamie." And, in walks my mom. And my mom looks at me and she goes, "Traybo, you okay?" And I said, "No, Mom, I'm not okay." And she said, "Well, come here. I got something for you." And so I stood up and I walked into the kitchen with her, and She turned around and she handed me a cell phone and she goes, "Hey, will you give me your old cell phone?" So why? She goes, "I got you a new phone number. That way those fucks can never call you again. And they can never get in touch with you." And I said, "Okay." And then immediately I knew. I looked up at the ceiling and I was like, "Gosh, God, you can answer a prayer that fast?" Because I just sat there and prayed that prayer. And one part I didn't go back to is there was a period of time. I don't know how I skipped over this. It was this period of time of when I was praying to God and saying, "God, I'm sorry," that I felt this overwhelming feeling of love and it I want to say joy, but not joy as in like I'm jumping up for joy. It was this peaceful feeling, and I remember taking a breath because when I was crying, I could barely breathe through my nose, and I remember taking this breath, and it was just like everything's like went away, and I started feeling this feeling of uh of love and peace. And all of a sudden I could breathe like really, really, really well. And it was about that time whenever my mom walked in and she gave me that phone and said, "Here, this is your new phone number." And and I remember thinking, "Dang God, you answered that prayer that fast." Um it always stuck in my mind. It always stuck in my mind of what that feeling was. Like what I didn't realize right away. And it was actually years down the road, that feeling was the Holy Spirit came and took over because, um, because I had repented. Like it was true surrender. It was 100% true surrender. And, besides, man, I know for a fact that if every single person, I've told this to Carrie before, if every person that lives on this planet could feel what I felt, there wouldn't be a single soul that wasn't saved. I know that for a fact. Um, Fast forward a few years, because I did acknowledge that God answered that prayer. Like I knew immediately, like, God, you're real. You answered that prayer that fast. Fast forward a few more years and Carrie and I were at we were at a Home Depot. And we were checking out. We're Home Depot here in Wade. We were checking out and I had told her like she knows everything. Like I've told her about my past, the drugs and all that stuff, and the people that I was around and stuff like that. And she said, "Hey, babe, there's a guy staring at you." And she said his name, and he's a guy that I used to get drugs from, and he's not a good guy. He's not a good guy. Uh, he's the type of guy that's spending the rest of his life in prison, um, for things that people spend their life in prison for. And I remember looking over my shoulder in Home Depot, and as soon as my eyes locked with his, I thought to myself, "Okay, Trey, if he comes over here, you're gonna have to do something," because I didn't want him to speak to her. And the next thought that went through my mind was I went to, "Oh yeah, God, you promised me I would never speak to these people again, and I would never have to cross paths with them." And this person, he's not the type of guy he's not scared of anything. He's not the type of person to not say something. And I said that, I spoke to God, and I turned around and looked at him one more time, and he just sat there and he was just staring. And I knew that in that moment that God kept him there and kept him silent, and he didn't, and we checked out and we left. And that was, oh man, I don't know how many years after, that initial prayer. So what I learned there was that um prayers that we pray to God, as far as him answering those prayers, I think he answers. I figured out that he answers prayers for us that we prayed multiple times. Like I prayed for what I prayed for, and he answered that same prayer from several years back right then. Um, so yeah, that's it. I've never. I know that they say, I've had friends that told me that whenever they would get off, they had gotten clean and became sober, that it took, some of them say, "Oh, it took me months. It took me 30 days, or it took me this many days, or this or that," or some of them even say, I don't think I'll ever stop struggling with this. And I look back, and my my addiction was my addiction was not beat. I didn't beat my addiction. My addiction was taken away from me and taken out of my body by the Holy Spirit in my living room floor. And I only suffered for 2 days, and it's only because my sister walked in the room and said, "Hey, you need to get on your knees and you need to ask God." So, that's it.
What does your relationship with God look like?
Now,
Yeah.
um, I still have I don't have anything to compare my relationship with God to, other than, like, I don't I don't compare my relationship with God to other people. I'm I'm pretty private with my relationship with God. I'm not ashamed of it. Um, but I pray a lot. So I'm by myself. At my job, I'm by myself a lot. And so I pray a lot. And I talk to God a lot. And I even also, I don't know if this is right or wrong, or what it is, but I even talk to the devil a lot. I some days I'll, like, basically tell the devil, "Hey, dude, you can't mess with me that way," because Satan attacks. What Carrie and I have noticed is Satan attacks our marriage. Um, he used to attack it quite often. And I'm sure, since I'm sharing this, that he's going to come at it here within the next 3 or 4 days. But my relationship with God, I would say, is pretty good. I have a hard time memorizing. I don't memorize verses. I don't know if that has to do with, maybe I've damaged my brain. But I read the Bible quite a bit. Um, Really cool. A few, a few, I don't know, maybe a couple months after so back in high school, I should have brought that. I thought about bringing this old baseball hat I used to wear in high school, because in high school, when I was 15 years old, I wrote this verse down in this baseball hat, and I used to always think, why why did I write this verse? This verse is like, it's the most irrelevant verse. I'm fixing to tell you of it. But I remember thinking, like, why did I write this verse? Why did I pick this one? Um, anyway, so it's Isaiah 35:4. It says, basically, it says, uh, pull it up. Do you have your phone? Pull it up.
Yeah.
It says, behold, I just read it right before I came here, and I see that's why I can't memorize. Like I'm not able to memorize stuff.
It's okay. Isaiah what?
35:4. This is pretty cool.
Isaiah 35:4.
Mm-hmm.
Behold, your God will come with
Come vengeance,
vengeance.
he
With
come.
the recompense of God, he will come and save you.
Yes. So a couple of months after
Oh, it says there's more. It says, say to those who have an anxious heart,
yeah,
be strong.
say
Fear
to those
not.
with a fearful heart or anxious heart, be strong, do not fear. Your God will come. He'll come with vengeance. He will come with recompense. He will come and save you. So I wrote that verse down in my baseball hat when I was 15 years old, and I remember not knowing why. Why would I pick that verse?
Yeah.
Why not? Why not one of the cool verses? And after I became sober, after I'd quit doing drugs, I decided I was going to read Bible from start to finish. And I was just like, I'm going to read it as fast as I can. And so I ended up doing it twice. And on the second time around, I remember coming across that verse and being like, and it hit me. It's like, that verse, that's me. That God came back and he came back with recompense. What recompense is like um it's like he came back to console me.
Hmm.
And he but he came back with a vengeance. So so I thought that was pretty neat.
Hmm.
That's the reason I wrote that verse down.
Wow.
God. And then I always feel like that period of my life is it's a real world comparison to the parable of the 99 and the lost sheep.
What's that?
The parable, it's basically that if a shepherd has 100 sheep and one goes missing, he leaves the 99 there on the mountain to go get the one. And the coolest part of that is that it says all of heaven rejoices over one lost sheep more than they rejoice over 99 that didn't mess up.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of funny. One day in the UPS truck, I was thinking about that here recently. I was thinking about that, and I thought, like, I want to know what it sounded like in heaven. I bet it sounded like when like Baylor scores a touchdown and the stadium just erupts.
Hmm.
I bet that's what heaven sounded like. Like, you know what I mean? Think about it. Yeah. So
Um, what advice or encouragement would you give to somebody caught in addiction? And you said a really powerful moment was when Jamie came in and you said, I want to feel normal. I want to feel, I don't want to do that, but I want to feel normal. I feel like whatever the addiction is, I think that's kind of the cry is I'm doing this because I want to feel that normal. I want to feel good.
um,
What encouragement or advice do you have to those people?
to somebody with an addiction, it could be any addiction. I would if I were to tell somebody today, I would ask them first, do they want to stop? Because I think that I think what I learned in this is that my heart was in place. My heart was in the right place. I wanted to stop. Now, the addiction wasn't going to allow me to stop, but I think what happened is God stepped in and he came and got me and took me back to the other 99 sheep. So I would tell a person like, hey man, here, you're gonna have to go get on your knees and pray. And if you can't do that by yourself, well, I can go do that with you. I can get down on my knees again and pray for somebody else if their life is saved. That would actually be really cool.
Mm. Would you be willing to pray right now for those people out there that are stuck in addiction?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You ready?
Yeah.
Father God, thank you for rescuing me. Father, I know that there's a lot of folks that do have addictions, God, and God, I pray that those folks can recognize that the only way to beat that addiction is through you, through your son. Um, Father, I pray that if there are those out there with addiction that do need help, God, that why not me? Why don't I help them? Why don't you have me help them, Father? Um, God, I just pray that you let those folks identify their addiction, and God, just pray that you overwhelm them with your Holy Spirit like you did me. You sing to pray in your son's name, amen.
Man. Powerful, man.